All right, welcome to the lab. I'm Courtney Christian. And this is Giggles.
Also known as Christian Sorensen.
And this is the Taking Apart Music podcast. So today is episode 4. We're talking about vibe, which is an intangible subject. One of many I'm sure that we'll talk about. But what does it mean to you, Chris, the word vibe?
Well, vibe for me is another way to put it, I guess would say, is mood. You know, when musicians talk a lot about vibe, a lot of times they're referring to, you know, what's the mood going to be? To say, hey man, how was that venue or how was that session? Be like, oh, the vibe was awesome. And that usually means that everyone there was in a good mood, or at least in the same mood. A lot of people were on the same page, and it, means that everyone's in the same headspace, so that when you go to make music together, that everyone's on the same page. Everyone feels good in the same way.
Well, vibe is absolutely important. There's a reason it's part of the slang that we use in a way. When things are vibing and people are really enjoying themselves, we get great music from that. The musicians enjoy the experience. I'm sure the singers enjoy working with musicians that can back them up in such a way.
Oh yeah.
So one thing that I feel like really affects the vibe is the lighting in the room.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that not a lot of people think about right away when they go into a session of some kind. And I know here we pay quite a bit of attention to the lighting. It's cool to be able to go from, light or white lights like this, to be able to illuminate something, but also go to dark lights just to have it moodier. Yeah.
And what's interesting? I feel that you can also tell sometimes what the lighting is just by listening. People, I've had band leaders before tell me that they want that sort of smoky, atmospheric sound to come from the band. They want it to be like a club, 3 o'clock in the morning, late at night sort of thing. And that conjures up a certain image. So when we play effectively, we're conjuring up that sort of image. We're giving a vibe off.
Yeah. It's, I guess a lot of times I refer to sometimes making music, or, I guess especially performing music for other people. It's a lot like establishing an illusion, just like going to a theater. They're trying to pull you into this world. And the better they are at maintaining the illusion, the more lost in that moment you get, the more real everything feels. And, similarly in music, we're trying to just in a way feel cool ourselves and feel cool together in order to bring people into that feeling with us. And it doesn't have to necessarily be cool. It could be sad, or it could be happy, or it could just, it could be any emotion that the song is trying to convey, even if it's that, something more sinister, like a smoky alley or something.
Of course. And I think sometimes it gets away from us, and it sort of becomes its own entity, no matter what all the individuals mean to portray in that particular song, or whatever feel they were going for. Sometimes the parts make up a completely different vibe. I feel like yesterday we had a jam here in the lab, and everybody was just feeling a little different from how we usually do. It wasn't, I wouldn't even say it was bad. It was interesting. We were all in our own headspaces, and the jams were really short. And strange is the best way I could put it.
Yeah, it seems, there are days when we come in here and either, I guess we're all listening to something similar, or just came in a similar mood, and it seems that, we all just jump in on something and happen to be like, I can't believe all of you were thinking the same thing I was.
Yeah, totally.
Without even setting it up. And yesterday we all come in and it's almost as if we sit around a table and then all say what's on our mind at once, and we all say like a different color, and it's like, oh, well, that was cool. We made brown. Didn't,
yeah, exactly. We made brown with our rainbow.
Yeah. That's a.
But so vibe. We talk about sessions. There are all kinds of different leaders in a session. There's always somebody that's sort of taking the charge, I feel. I mean, I've been in very few situations where it was fully democratic and every single member that was in there, engineers and musicians alike, had an equal say. Usually there's that personality, and I feel it's often the singer, just because they are the voice.
Yeah.
That kind of takes hold, and that shapes the way those songs end up sounding. So, what experiences do you have with singers in particular? Does anyone stand out to you?
Oh man, I know. First name that came to mind is Joss Stone.
Yeah.
Also because I was just listening to some Jeff Beck and she sings with him a fair amount. But Joss Stone also comes to mind because whenever I hear her sing, that she has so much soul and there's you can just watching her with the sound off, you can get a sense of the vibe that's happening. You can the way she not only expresses vocally, but even physically, you can see her almost strain to get a sound out. But that's not necessarily she's not straining her voice. It's it's the emotion partially being expressed, and singers in a way they completely control the audience's perception of what the vibe is. In that way. Singers can both create and destroy great moments.
Yes, definitely.
It's often why it's so hard to hold that down. But, a singer, in a way, can also be the glue. If the band is really holding it together, they can be, the icing on the cake, the point that everyone in the audience can look to for the cue to do something. And so it's a double-edged sword, but it can be.
It is
awesome.
because there are times when the singer is not feeling it. Mm-hmm. Something really dramatic has happened in their life, whatever it may be, and if the singer's not feeling it, the audience doesn't feel it either, and it's all downhill from there.
Yeah.
So, in that way, I feel like we had a session recently with Callista, right? Yeah, and I'd never heard her sing before. It was actually only my second time playing with you guys when we recorded Wisdom Tree, or the version I'm on at least. And I wasn't sure what to expect, but her voice was way bigger than she is. She's kind of a short, tiny girl, and all of a sudden she starts singing, and you think you're hearing someone else, or I did at least.
Yeah.
Because first time, of course, hearing her, so that totally changed the way that I thought I was going to play in that particular session. It changed everything.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly something can inform the vibe. A lot of times, musicians are hanging around, and then the singer shows up, and wow, and suddenly that's the vibe. In a way, they define it, but by having one person define the vibe, or at least set it up, it I guess. It's consistent, there isn't this mixed match of colors there. If a singer can hold the spotlight or just hold the center of that attention, but in a way that supports the group, that's trying to just make it uniform so that everyone is in fact on the same page. Another cool example of vibe that comes to mind is, Jimi Hendrix was one of those that, he walked in the room, he started playing, like that was the vibe. Like, he embodied it, and it was apparent. You couldn't feel anything but what he was feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
In that way, and everyone had this point to look to, and that
it's like a magnetism that draws everyone in. So let me ask you then, what actually ruins the vibe for you? Because vibe, I feel, is actually as a term has a positive connotation unless you throw something negative on it.
Yeah, something's like, oh man, that's just bad vibes. Or
I often find when there's someone that comes in that's either stuck up or they're just so new that they're unsure of themselves, feel like they have to overcompensate to be part of the group and to be accepted. That always throws me off a little bit. I love it when someone comes in and they just feel like part of the band.
Mm-hmm. Or you can tell that someone is playing for the better of the group as a whole, not just to make themselves sound better. When someone cares about making the groove better, even if it means to stop playing at that time, to go to do less or to do more, whatever is appropriate. But whenever someone their goal is to make the whole thing, the whole session, even if it's just one person and they're a part of the session, if your goal is to make that day successful, to me that's you're working towards the vibe. But something that'll kill it immediately is someone just getting, I guess, in the way, and not and maybe not intentionally, but not being aware of what other people are doing and where other people are at in their mental space. To me, it can really get in the way and be frustrating. And working in studios and back when I was interning a lot, it was really important for me to learn how to almost disappear in the session, to be polite to the artist, do what I needed to do, and no more, and then be gone.
Yeah, shut up and listen, right?
Yeah, again, just to not do as little as I could to keep that bubble of vibe intact, and suddenly you find yourself getting invited back. But yeah, I guess that you got to be aware of where everyone else is at. You got to know if you're part of the group, where you are in that group. If you're just there to be helping out that day, in a way, know your place. And again, just be working towards making sure everyone has a good day.
Yeah, and I think that's contributed to some of the greatest recordings, records, performances that we've ever heard or seen. That's why you find so many of these collectives of whether it be studio musicians or bands that just have this sustained success because they all enjoy each other. And then there comes a point where a lot of times they can't stand each other, or maybe the band has just run its course, and all of a sudden the music just doesn't sound as good. And sometimes that's not the case. I know the Beatles were at each other's throats by the end of that run, and their music still sounded magnificent by the end.
Yeah, but another band, Metallica has a really interesting arc. Their first couple of records were, unprecedented. They brought a vibe and intensity and a style that, just seemed to raise the bar in a lot of ways. And yet, over the course of their albums, you can hear, all the disconnections, grow throughout the band. You can, their albums will come out and something just like, when you don't walk away with something from an album or a song, when you just go, well, I heard all of that, but I don't really have anything to say about that. But when you walk away from Kill 'Em All, and it's just wow. I mean, that was it was something.
It really left you with something
spread out. It left you with this a very concrete vibe, and I guess that's what it is. Is that all of those guys were on the same page, on the same vibe, and so you walk away from that piece of work, really feeling that. But when everyone's disconnected, it's hard to get that same value out of the music.
Yeah, I think it's also why it's so important that studios are so comfortable. The professional studios I've seen, a few elements I always see, generally very clean, usually a lot of space, and instruments are easy to get to and plug in and that sort of thing.
All the way down to, in a lot of big studios, they pay a lot of attention to making sure the fridge is stocked and that the couches are comfortable and that things are clean and the bathroom doesn't smell. All of these things can be distractions. That's another, going back to what I was saying, people are in vibes and you're just trying not to pull them out. And a lot of times that's just being distracting. You may not be doing anything bad or wrong in another context, but simply because you're distracting, you're drawing attention away from, I guess, what that day's focus is.
Yeah.
And comfort becomes a huge part of that. Like the whole space has to be, be comfortable so that it's uninterrupted. What's something about vibe that sticks out to you that you walk into a place and, your vibe radar is on? What do you notice first that communicates, wow, this place is cool?
Yeah. It's another intangible term, but I would say there's usually an electricity in the air. Like when I walk into a place and I feel like everybody is already in that good mood and they're primed to really do something well. I've had a few days like that where I get here, there's music playing, we're setting up, but everyone's kind of feeling it in a good mood, and then we jump into it, and the magic happens, and everybody is present, attentive, and listening. And I think listening, too, is something that will contribute to that overall vibe. Because when you listen to each other, all of a sudden, everything syncs up. And the music sounds like one cohesive whole.
Yeah. And, wow. It's crazy that we find ourselves in those moments where we have good days. And it's one of those things you can't really try to do it. You simply practice, you do it a lot, and then suddenly you notice, you got your instrument on, you're looking around at everybody in your band, and you realize that everything has gone just the way it should. The setup was fine, everyone's feeling good. Just the moment could it be better, and there's nothing in your way. And you just dig in, and that's that pure form of expression. And again, I think it's often just a result of the removal of distraction.
I think so. It's also a skill that you have to practice with others. Vibe is something that you will hurt for if you only practice by yourself and very rarely play with others, because you get used to doing it one way, a certain way. I actually don't know, Chris, how many bands you've been in. How many has it been?
Frankly, not very many. I've been playing with this band, Boulevard Jam Society, for I guess about 2 years now. Before then, a couple small gigs. Just playing like 1 or 2 shows, learn a set, go play a couple of those. Before that, I started a ska band that I had the first couple years of high school, a friend's band. It was hard rock, and man, that's about it. I have not played in very many.
So do you feel like you learned how to play with other people a lot better each successive time? I guess what I mean is, do you feel like you understood the nuances of working with fellow musicians and the different personalities that come from this world we call music?
Oh, certainly. I mean, you walk in and you start playing, or even just before your instruments come out of your case, you just start talking with the other players, and you already get a sense of their personality and likely how they are going to approach playing the music.
Oh, yes.
And I guess the biggest thing to practice, or, I can walk into a place and feel prepared if you got the music in your head. Hopefully you've heard it, and you're in tune with what's going on. You walk in and you figure out, who's leading, who is, setting up the vibe for this session. Who do I follow, or what can I most directly support that would support the whole group? And if you can be aware.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's often that one guy that knows how to deal with everybody in the band. Because personalities, whether they're strong or weaker, or however you want to put it, sometimes they just clash because people see things differently. And there's often that one guy that's good enough at joking or just that everyone respects or something like that. Oftentimes when you're a young musician, he's the older guy that's in that band, and he's teaching everybody how to play, or maybe not how to play, but how to play closer to his conception. And since you don't know as much, you follow along and you learn a lot from that person, and your band takes on that overall vibe of that one particular person.
Yeah, it's interesting that not only can one person, I guess dictate a lot or set up a lot about what a vibe should be, but it's really cool to see how, I guess, mature musicians interact and blend their vibes. And I don't say, mature, not, been playing for a lot of years, just basically mature enough to be aware of vibe and know how to in a way mold it with other people. You develop a bit of your people skills. You have enough control over your instrument that you're flexible. That you can essentially make compromises with the other people that you play. And what's really fun is now we're at a point where we can come together, and it's fun to blend our vibes, our different moods, our slightly different perspectives to an extreme. If we're in greatly different moods or bad moods or whatever, then it doesn't gel. But I love playing with you guys so much because we care about a lot of the same things, but we also approach them from very different ways. And I like the way that you guys approach things, and I guess the blend of that. Maybe that is a little bit outside of vibe, but I like your default vibe. It's just like being friends with anybody else. You may not want to spend all the time that you go all the time in the world with the people you go golfing with, but you love golfing with those people. Not that you should golf; it's a terrible sport.
Is it a sport?
No.
No, I had a chance to play a show this last Saturday with the drummer that was in my first band with me, and we'd met because we sat next to each other in English, I think in sophomore year of high school or something like that. And he heard me talking about some band that he liked, and we talked, and I found out, oh, you play drums. I'm just starting to play bass. I mean, this is several months into my learning music. And we got together and played, and we'd been through a couple bands throughout the years, but at this point, he's doing his thing, I'm doing mine. But we had a chance to play at the same show. He had me sit in with his band, and it was like no time had passed. It was like the same kind of connection and I guess vibe like we're talking about. And it's definitely something linked, in my mind, to personality. and to the way that you think of life and music and how you approach things. I mean, it's amazing to me how it was like stepping back into, I guess, 5 years ago.
Yeah, maybe that's, I don't know, that's kind of a nice place to wrap this up. That, you know, vibe is, a lot of it is about personality. Just earlier today, happened to be talking to somebody, you know, they're interested in getting more serious in recording, and I was telling them essentially it's great, you know, to go to school and to learn a lot of the technical stuff, but so much of the time, the make or break for whether or not they call you back for the studio or somebody, you know, wants you there is your personality, is, you know, liking to spend time with them, or, you know, even if they aren't the best, you like the way that they problem solve, or, you know, they clear that you care about the project and you care about what you do. So personality, it goes a long way. Yeah,
I think at a certain point, it matters almost a bit more than your skill level.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when what you're looking for isn't something too lofty. Yeah,
and one of the best pieces of advice as far as playing, a good friend of mine, Kurt, gave me, great bass player. He said to me, "Just make it feel good." I was taking a bass lesson from him real quick for a one-off bass gig, and that was his last piece of advice: is just make it feel good. And all I was saying is that don't worry about all the details. You get bogged down. You're looking at your chart. You're thinking so hard about the music, and you forget to look up and look at the faces of the other people around you, and remember to just make it feel good. Even if you're not playing, make the space, make the air, you know, have people enjoy being around you. You know, keep that vibe intact, and it'll work.
Well, I think we can leave it there. We would love to hear what you have to say about vibe, so please leave a comment below. We are the guys at the lab, and we will be releasing more videos and podcasts in the weeks to come. So thank you for listening. I'm Courtney Christian.
I'm Christian Sorensen.
This is fun.